you've ever spent hours reading porta potty graffiti, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Guys, like and comment. Lots of great porta potty graffiti out there. Give me a couple stories of it. I have a lot of NTC porta potty graffiti stories. I love reading the arguments. It's a very interesting microcosm. But in any case, I can't talk about them on YouTube because I'm pretty sure it violates some guideline. But it most certainly does not violate the comments guideline. So get in there, tell me some stories. If you guys are looking to support the channel, the biggest support of the channel right now is Big Daddy Unlimited. Big Daddy Unlimited is like the Costco of the gun world. 99 cents for the first month. Is it worth it? Are you worth it? I think you are. We have some other great sponsors of the channel. Of course, we have the Dude Bag. The Dude Bag is a subscription service. A big thank you to them for their help and their support of the channel. We, of course, have USCCA, which is Concealed Carry Insurance. Check it out if you're a concealed carrier. And if you can't get the insurance in your state, they certainly have awesome resources to get you up to speed. And a final shout out, of course, to Mirror Defense. Go check out their gas masks. They actually are pretty awesome. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Ladies, gentlemen, and often forgotten, but most certainly not by me, 1911 A1s. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about a very cool pistol. We have the Staccato P. The Staccato P is a gun that I have done a review on as far as the predecessor to this particular weapon. However, Staccato has made some very good changes to the weapon. So I thought we'd take a moment and we'd reminisce together and we talk a little bit about what makes this gun good, bad, what you might like about it, what you might not like about it, and talk about what some concerns are if you're going to be buying it. So without further ado, let's get into it. Full disclosure, as we always do, what is my relationship with Staccato? They have given me 2 pistols at this point, and this one included. Did a review on the other one. No exchange of ammo, no exchange of money. And that is that. And of course, I will always be my savage self as I always am. Let's go and let's get into this. So if you aren't familiar with the Staccato P is a 2011. If you're not familiar with what a 2011 is, essentially take the 1911, which was a venerable, well-vetted platform that served for a very long time throughout the armed forces in a variety of capacities and has been used the world over to kill people. And they decided to update it to 9mm, which is quite a deadly round in modern loadings, and then update it, give it a double stack magazine so it has a greater capacity, and bring the 1911 into the modern world. Because despite all the new weapons out there, they just don't feel as good as the 1911 felt. The 1911 with its grip angle and its recoil pattern and impulse and how it came to your eye just felt good. And because of that, they resurrected it as the 2011, which is what we have right here. There are many 2011s made. This is, of course, one of them. Now, before we get into this, I want to kind of preface this by saying that overall, she is a fast fucking gun. She wants to run fast, and she does. She's certainly faster than many of my go-to 9mm, such as my Glocks, my M&Ps, and a couple others that I typically go to shoot. She is very well made, very well put together, but there are certainly some quirks that come into shooting and owning and just running a 2011 hard. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'll hit those points as we go through them and talk about them a little bit. So starting off, we have our barrel. The barrel is, of course, part of the heart of the weapon. And without a good barrel, we have a lot of problems, anything from accuracy to reliability. In the case of the 2011 right here, we have a bull barrel. So why that is good is that we have that increased thickness coming out to the end of the gun right there. And what that does do is as the barrel heats up, you have more material to heat up. Essentially, it acts as a heat sink, and because of that, you have better accuracy as the weapon heats up compared to a gun with a lighter barrel. So I can really appreciate the fact that they used a bull barrel in this particular weapon. I think it's a great idea for a weapon that is meant to be, in many cases, a duty weapon for a variety of people. In fact, a lot of elite law enforcement agencies have chosen the Staccato as their duty weapon. So there's a lot to be said about that because, of course, there's a lot of testing that goes into those programs. So I find it interesting, but in any case, the barrel is suspiciously accurate. And what I mean by that is despite the ammunition that I use, whether it be Winchester White Box, Federal, whatever ammo I might be using, even Blazer, I'm getting ridiculously tight groups of 25. and it's whatever heebie-jeebie magic comes into the entirety of the gun, just making it easier for me to fire. It's the combination of a great barrel, but I'm ridiculously accurate with this weapon, so I can very much so appreciate the design and the hand fitting that went into making this gun just incredible. So they did a really excellent job with the barrel on making sure that they had a great platform to ensure that you get, and again, making shots at 180 yards, no problem at all with Staccato. So if you need to make those long, spicy shots, this gun's got you 100%. We have the recoil system. The recoil system isn't your run-of-the-mill recoil system that you typically see in a 2011 or even a 1911. It is a tuned system that is specific to the Staccato. Now, a lot of people talk about return. How well does the gun return when you fire? And what I mean by that is, as I fuck with the magazine a bunch, when I fire this weapon, so pull the trigger, weapon goes off, cycles, comes back. How well does that cycling and that coming back bring me back onto target? And that was a lot of the research and development that went into the Staccato, ensuring that it had a really good return. So with the combination of heavy slide, heavy barrel, recoil spring together, this weapon has a tendency to just settle right back down to where it originally was when you first pulled the trigger. Because of that, it is suspiciously fast when you're firing it, because the minute you pull that trigger, you see your dot, you see your sights, and you're immediately pulling that trigger again. And the trigger, we'll talk about it soon, but just everything lines up so that this weapon, you can just blast away with it. So, there's a lot to be said for the recoil impulse on the 2011, especially the Staccato P. And the Staccato P is pretty damn good. Of all the weapons I fired, it's definitely among the flatter shooting. I would definitely put it on the same plane as the Type B. It's just about that good. And of course, those are completely different guns, but she's fast. She is very fast. And I definitely can appreciate the amount of time and effort that went into making that just a weapon that would do that for us. So good job to Staccato. Now, with all of that, 2011s are a little bit finicky. Here comes the quirks of a 2011. Is when you have a Glock, you can pretty much run that Glock until the slide breaks, until the frame breaks, or just you can just shoot that until that gun just falls apart. That's not so much with a 2011. You need to be replacing the springs and cleaning this more often than you would a Glock or an MMP or a CZ-SP01 or even a Browning High Power. And the reason for that is just due to the design of the 2011. Though a very fast gun, though a very reliable weapon, it does require more maintenance than many other Wonder 9s that are currently out there. Now, I think Travis Haley said it best. If you're going to be going deep into the woods on a recon mission and, you're trapezing through desert and snow and water and sand and everything's just getting gummed up, the 2011 probably, or the 1911 probably isn't your bitch at that point, right? You're probably going to be better off the Glock or something like that. But the 2011 is like a race car, right? It's not meant to go off-road, although it can. But if you need something fast, if you're a police officer or you're doing some type of assaulting or something like that, a lot of people tend to prefer the 2011 because, again, she is fast and she is incredibly accurate. So all those things come together to make for a better firing gun. So, all it comes down to is knowing kind of what you want this pistol for. Many other Wonder 9s are likely going to outpace it in terms of reliability, but I don't believe that they can compete with it when it comes to speed and accuracy if you're trained at the same level. So if I pick up a Glock and I pick up this, I'm going to be that much more accurate and precise with this compared to the Glock. Not to say that the Glock is a terrible weapon at all, but just to say that this is a refined weapon platform in many ways. Next, we have the slide. So the slide is excellently machined. You have the DLC coating, which are awesome coatings. I have had very little to no wear patterns on this gun. I've done about 1,000 rounds on it. Unfortunately, I'd like to do more, closer to 4,000. But man, fucking ammo shortage is hitting me too, guys. I'm having to kind of cut back on on the amount of rounds that I'm firing because I can't afford it, and neither can other companies. But in any case, the slide is very well machined. You have your front serrations for your cool press checks, be a cool guy, be John Wick. Then you have your rear ones if you don't have an optic, probably easier to hit. Very well done, and that kind of brings us to the sights and to the optic mounting platform. Now, before we do, it should be noted that the 2011 Staccato P is a heavy bitch. So she's about 34 ounces. So compared to many other Wonder 9s out there, you're definitely getting a little bit more weight on here. Now, of course, like any other heavy gun, I'm thinking of like the Walther Q4, for example, that weight does help keep it on target very well. So compared to the Walther, which had a kind of a higher bore axis and wasn't as refined as of a pistol to me, the Staccato is everywhere where that refinement should be. So heavy, yes, but again, feels good. Again, this is going to fit a certain type of mission set, so understand that getting into it. Now, the sights are fairly good. Now, I was a little surprised that they did a fiber optic front. I've typically done blacked out front sights when I'm running an optic, and the reason for that is that I don't draw my eye. Of course, the thing about that is when you're shooting with a red dot on, you're gonna be target focused, so it really shouldn't come into play. And also, if the argument is I'm gonna lose my dot, dot's red, fiber optic is green, so there's really no chance of that. So I found that shooting this at speed, that there's no problem with the fiber optic. Now, that being said, if my optic were to go down, I can very easily pick up that fiber optic through the window, and they did an excellent height on that. And it could have been easier to go even higher and get like a super high iron sights, but I'm glad that they kept them fairly low profile. Now, going from there, now on the rear sights right here, we do have good machining at the back to ensure that we have no glare. No problem with the iron sights. I think that they're incredibly well executed and well done. The optic mounting specifically is kind of interesting in my opinion. That optic mounting plate is thick with 3 Cs. And a lot of people have had a problem with that. They would like the RMR to be lower. And I do agree, a lower optic is a happier optic for me in my eyes. But that being said, this was designed from the ground up to be a duty grade handgun. So it was made to ensure that if you drop this thing, if you got into a shitty situation, that this thing was going to work, including the optic mounting solution. So thick she is, yes, but she's gonna work for you. And all the time that I've been firing this and using this and dropping this, I've had no issues with it. And in fact, another really good review on this gun is from Sage Dynamics, and he does a shit ton of drop testing on his guns, and he had no issues as well. So I'm inclined to believe that although the optic mounting plate is quite thick and quite large, that it is incredibly robust. So I can respect that. Good on you, Staccato. So moving down from there, we do have a Surefire X300 uniform right here, Bravo model. No problems there, it fits perfectly. A little bit of carbon caking just from the muzzle being a little bit further back from the pistol light. But again, if you use some type of treatment or chapstick, no issue there, so no problems. Controls are 1911, 2011 standard, which is good. So let's talk about that for a little bit, because there are a lot of quirks that come with 2011, 1911 design. So specifically, of course, we have a safety. Most of us have gotten very used to a trigger safety of some type, and having a manual safety suddenly can be a little bit weird for a lot of people. So weird, yes, but at the same time, if I'm working with a Safariland holster, and a quick plug to my good buddy, Ghostman Designs, who did these holsters. So he modifies existing Safariland holsters so that they fit with a variety of guns, and he modified this to work with the Staccato P. He can do that for you as well. Check him out on Instagram, Ghostman Designs. Cool dude, making a great product. But in any case, when you draw from an ALS or from a holster of some type, when you release that mechanism, or just when you draw in general, it's very easy just to sweep your thumb down as you pull it out. So it really isn't an issue to have that manual safety. Again, it's just something to train through. I'm definitely not going to hold it against the gun at all. Manual safeties have their place, and in this case, they work fairly well in this gun. Now, slide release is where it gets weird on the 2011. I guess I'm sure some fucking idiot out there is like, slide stop. Again, nobody cares. So getting into it, when you're performing your reload with a 2011, 1911, for most people, the slide release is a little bit too far to engage with their firing side thumb like you typically would on a Glock, a CZ, a Browning high power. So because of that, most people do the support side reload. So what they do is you eject your old mag, new mag is in. As soon as that's in, you roll your thumb up, hit it onto the slide release, and you have a round loaded. There are, of course, a couple ways to do it. If you have monster hands, you can just do it, no problem. Good for you, but again, you have monster hands and nobody wants to be your friend. But in any case, You should be managing your reload, so you shouldn't have to do too many of those reloads. You should just be in a slide forward and get those magazines back in. And that is something that I can say. So we have a magazine that is fully reloaded with 20 rounds right there, and it is very easy to get those to seat. On some weapons, when your slide is forward, that can be incredibly difficult, but that is not the case when it comes to the 2011. So good on them there. Now, of course, if you really wanted to, you could load up and power stroke that bitch, but you know, it's not 2009, so we're gonna go ahead and use that slide release as much as we can. And that brings us down to the grip. One of the great things about the 2011 and 1911 has been the grip angle. John Moses Browning, when he originally designed the 1911, I think that we had similar sized hands and we're kind of a similar sized person. Maybe that's bad because he's probably tiny, but in any case, the grip angle just works. It points very naturally when I push the gun out compared to like a Glock where I kind of have to cant my hand a little bit forward. I've always been very pleased to push out and punch out a gun on a 2011, 1911. It just feels good. And especially as you begin to fire it, they just have a tendency to settle right where you were aiming. So, you know, that is absolutely the case on the Staccato, and combined with the heavy slide, the bull barrel, the recoil, spring right there, this weapon just cycles effortlessly in your hand. It just feels so good. I can't say enough good things about how that recoil impulse feels. And then combine that with the grip right here. Again, they changed it over from the tree bark to a textured grip. It does feel good, no problems there. It's definitely more of a carry texturing on this. As you can see here, it's not super aggressive, but it's certainly enough that when I'm shooting, I can, you know, keep a good grip on the gun. No problems there. You have an extended magazine release right here. It's in a perfect position for me. I have no issues with the magazine release. No problems. They feel pretty similar to other guns. And down at the bottom here, we do have a magazine well. I'd consider it more of a carry magazine well because it's not huge, but it's just enough to just guide it right in. So it feels pretty good. Now, you know, kind of going from there, we've kind of avoided it for long enough, and I know you guys have been waiting for it, but we have the trigger. So the trigger isn't like ridiculously light because this is a duty grade weapon. But 1911s, 2011s are known for just being the best triggers. They are just phenomenal. They're amazing. In this case, we have about a 4-pound trigger that is made for duty usage. So very similar in many ways to the Geisley AR triggers, where they are crisp, they have a great let off, they're fast. However, they have enough weight behind them to where you're not worried about, you know, this weapon being unsafe in certain situations. In any case, safety's off, little Unchained Melody, put your finger right over mine. We're gonna go set trigger together. So we have about 1 millimeter of play, get into our first wall, 4 pounds, clean. Just absolutely perfect. Let's try that one more time. 4 pounds. So again, that millimeter play. Absolutely perfect. That feels wonderful. Let's check the reset. 1 millimeter, and it springs your finger right forward to that wall. 4 pounds. Wonderful. Just a wonderful, wonderful trigger. I can't say enough good things about how good the trigger is. Again, you combine all that together with the excellent recoil, the grip angle, the trigger, you just have yourself a really good gun. Now, there are problems with the Staccato, and this kind of goes to all 2011s. Most guns have an Achilles heel. In the case of the 2011, that Achilles heel is the magazines. The magazines have plagued 2011s since their inception. They typically require a lot of fitting, a lot of tuning to get them to work properly in a variety of guns, and they typically just don't work that well. And although these newer gen magazines do work quite well in the Staccato, I still found them to have a lot of the same problems that I previously had with 2011 magazines, which is where I'll have rounds. If you drop a magazine, rounds will just shoot straight up. If you kind of feed it in wrong, it'll shoot rounds out sometimes. It's just, you generally have problems with these magazines. Now, I found if a magazine is going to work, it typically just works. So I mark those magazines as good, give them a little number. If they're bad, I give them a bad word, and then start working with them and see if I can get them working. But certainly when it comes to the 2011, the magazines are the weak point. So understand that coming into it. it is kind of the one thing that really holds me back from like fully just making this my only gun that I shoot, because otherwise I can deal with having to change the springs out more often, to cleaning the gun more often, because she's so fucking fast. But man, the magazines just kind of really give me a little bit of pause. To be clear, if you get good ones, they're gonna work well. And again, this is me nitpicking pretty hard, because for the most part, the magazines are about 99%. But for that 1% where they don't, it's certainly very frustrating. But in any case, any problems that do occur aren't due to the Staccato, but certainly due to the magazine design. So, I'm sure in the very near future, better magazine designs will be coming out for this. And as these guns kind of become more popular, that will occur. But as it stands, I certainly have some reservations when it comes to the magazines, when it comes to the 2011s, unfortunately. So what it comes down to is it worth it? So we have a fairly phenomenal gun. However, there's certainly a weak link in the pistol, but to be honest, I find it to be reliable enough because I can find the magazines that work. So it's not that big of a deal to me. And I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people about, is it worth it? So we have a gun, goes between 1900 to 2300, depending on the model that you're getting, if you're having an optic or not. And you compare that to, say, a Glock, right? Typically around 5 to 6, well, right now probably a little bit more expensive. But would I rather somebody have a Glock for $600 and then spend that remaining $1,400 that they'd spend on the Staccato, had they bought the Staccato instead on ammunition, or, buy this weapon and have a whole lot less for ammo? And you know what I'm going to say, and that's that if you cannot afford to buy a Staccato and shoot it regularly and practice with it regularly, then it isn't going to be worth it. Now, that being said, if you're a well-practiced shooter, if you shoot quite a bit and you feel like you've kind of reached the edge of your skill with, say, a Glock or what have you, then certainly the Staccato is going to be a fairly phenomenal firearm in your hands. And in fact, talking to a couple different instructors like Drew Estel from Bear Solutions, I asked him if he would really have his students or him pick this weapon over a Glock. And he said he would, because people who don't shoot a lot, he finds, fire far better with this weapon than they do with the Glock, due to the ergonomics, due to the recoil, due to the trigger. It's just a much easier gun to shoot accurately and fast compared to a Glock. So he said, in his opinion, it is certainly worth it. And that is an important kind of point that I bring up, because I do get very biased on making sure that you have the ammo to shoot it. But that being said, the Staccato P is a very shootable weapon, and I do think it is worth it. It just make sure that you have the ammo to shoot it, is my general opinion on it. Train with it, because again, if you're not training with these firearms, you're going to suck with them and you're not going to be good. So make sure that you get that training out there. Tons of great guys to get training from. Bear Solutions, Cogworks, Haley Strategic, they're willing to train you. Make yourself the weapon. Overall, I think that this gun is worth it. I think it's typically out of most people's price range, and there is nothing wrong with getting a Glock or what have you, or some other Wonder 9 that will do the job just as well. But if you have the means, if you have the money, the Staccato P is certainly worth it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys so much. Make sure that you get in the comment section, spread a little love, and as always, I've got nothing else for you guys. Final thing for you guys, make sure that you are prioritizing your time. Time is the most important resource that you have. There is no better gift that you can give and no better gift that you have. Make sure you spend it wisely. It is more valuable than any currency you could ever have. And that is a good way to think of life. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've gotten this far, Survival Dispatch. Survival Dispatch is a survival website for SEER information. As a former survival guy, I can't recommend it enough. Get in there. Ladies and gentlemen, final shout out to my Patreon people. Get in there, support us on the Patreon. It makes this channel awesome. Thank you so much. I love you guys. I've got nothing else for you.